Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is Towergate day number 1281, November the 18th, 2020, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well hopefully this video will not be blocked by YouTube, Google, and you'll get a chance to watch this video. So we have some things to talk about today. So let's go ahead and go through them. So first of all, 2 days ago I did a video and I told you that Sean Davis, the editor at the Federalist, had tweeted out that his sources were telling him that John Durham was basically ending his investigation. Nothing was going to come of it. There would be no charges. And then a day or two later, Sean Davis comes out with another tweet saying he now has other sources telling him, in fact, John Durham is still continuing to move ahead on his investigation and that there likely will be some charges. So we don't know what the truth is here. Sean Davis is pretty solid. I assume he has good sources. Obviously, he's got sources who disagree. I don't know who these sources are, if they're people actually inside the Durham investigation, or if they're outsiders or just people guessing. I really don't know. The only person who would know that would be Sean Davis. But, the fact that he would, I mean, I think he's an honest guy. I mean, he comes out and tells you in his first tweet that he's got sources that say Durham's, wrapping it up and nothing's going to happen. Then he turns around and says he's got other sources saying the otherwise. So at least he's being straight with what his sources are telling him. Clearly, he's being told two different things. We'll find out. But I guess my feeling on this is that I don't know that it's, to me, it does matter still. It's still a big deal, but I guess ultimately I just see this whole Barr and Durham investigation as being a complete massive epic fail. To me, the most important thing that Barr and Durham needed to do, obviously we want to hold the coup plotters accountable, but the most important thing they needed to do before the election was to make sure that Americans knew, before they went and voted in 2020, that all the allegations made previously were false and that it was part of a plot. It was a political dirty trick. So we just have this election and half the country goes to the polls still believing that Trump colluded with Russia, that he did something wrong and was impeached because of it, that he's a stooge for Russia and Putin. Half the country believes that because that's the media narrative that half the country pays attention to or watches or believes. The most important thing that Barr and Durham had to do was to, even if they're not done with the investigation, even if they're not going to find any crimes are committed, the most important thing is to clear up the big lie. Clear up the big lie. Americans needed to go when they went and voted in 2020 that the garbage that they were fed in 2016 and what continued to be propagated throughout the entire 4 years of Trump's presidency was not true. Americans needed to know the truth before they voted in 2020. But because of Barr and Durham, that did not happen. And it was so important. And even Barr himself said he understood how important that was. He failed, and he failed miserably. I lay a lot of this at the feet of Attorney General Barr. As far as whether or not he's just incompetent, doesn't have the balls to do the job, or he's a turncoat, or whatever. Whatever his reasons are for not getting the job done is pretty irrelevant at this point. All that matters is he didn't get the job done. And it cost the country big. Now, I would say the chances, if Biden and the Democrats and the deep state are successful at stealing this election, I would say the odds that there's going to be any charges coming from the Durham investigation are probably 5%, maybe less, practically zero. Barr and Durham knew that as well. So I guess that's how I look at it. Whether or not Durham's continuing the investigation, he's not continuing the investigation. It's a little late now. It's a little late. Durham's been on this investigation for long enough to know whether or not crimes were committed, crimes were not committed, but at the very least, even if crimes were not committed, the most important thing was to tell people what happened. He could say, no, there were no crimes committed, but the country has been living under this narrative now for the entire length of the president's first term, that there was somehow this Russian collusion, that he's compromised by the Russians, all this kind of stuff. None of that was ever true. It was all just a political stunt by the rotten Reverend Clinton and the Democrats and their deep state friends and a bunch of corrupt people at the FBI, DOJ, and other sundry lowballers. That was what Barr and Durham really needed to do to serve the country. It wasn't necessarily indictments and all these other things. The most important thing they needed to do was make sure people knew what happened. Tell the truth. Before the election. People needed to know this before they voted. Epic fail. If the job of the Attorney General is to be the chief law enforcement officer in the country and to enforce the rule of law, then Barr has been one of the worst attorney generals of my lifetime, and we've had some really, really bad ones. I've never seen a level of open lawlessness that we have seen in the past 3 years and 9 months under Attorney General Barr. And he wasn't there for that entire time, but for the past 2 years or so, he has been there. Almost 2 years. And in those 2 years, under his term, and under previously before him, Rodent Steele as acting Attorney General, and then that hapless fool, Jeff Sessions, the Crimson Tide Elf. Between those three, I don't know which one's the worst. They all achieved the exact same result. They failed miserably. But by the time Barr took over, he knew. He knew. And regardless of how Durham felt about things, Barr's the boss. And even if Durham called him up and said, yeah, I don't think you should go out and talk about my investigation before the election because it'll mess with my investigation. Barr just said, well, I'm the boss. If you don't like it, let me know. You can drop your work on your desk or drop it off in my office, and you can go back to whichever you were doing before, and I'll get someone else to replace you because I'm the boss. And the people need to know what happened, what has happened over the past 3 years before they vote. You don't have to bring charges on anybody right now. You may not bring charges at all. But the most important thing is that people know that the last 3.5 years were a big hoax, a political dirty trick, propagated by the media. And half the country believes lies. It's dangerous. I guarantee if Rick Grinnell would have been the Attorney General, that's what would have happened. If I would have been the Attorney General, that's what would have happened. If most of you were the Attorney General, because we all knew how important it was, and so did Barr. What a major disappointment. What a massive fail. So, whether or not Durham's is still investigating, not investigating, I think that ship has sailed. The responsibility that they had, that they failed so miserably at meeting those responsibilities, overshadows anything that might happen now. It just pales in comparison. The most important thing was the truth. And we didn't get it. And now look what we got. And there's another reason why, at the very least, Attorney General Barr should have pointed it out. Because maybe it would have made the Democrats think twice about another coup plot. But because they got away with that plot and all their other plots, why wouldn't they cheat and try to steal an election? There's no repercussions. With Attorney General Barr, you can do whatever you want because he believes in equal justice under the law. He's not going to make the office political. He's not going to go after his political enemies, even if they committed crimes, because it doesn't look good. I guess that's his rationale. Massive failure. I could give a damn at this point what happens with the Durham investigation. The damage has been done. And I lay this right at the feet of Attorney General Barr. Well, yesterday, Trump fired the director of cybersecurity, Chris Krebs. This guy's a real trick. This guy literally came out and said that the 2020 elections were the most secure in American history, and that there was no real serious claims of voter fraud, voter irregularities, election fraud, any problems like that. It was a great election, the most secure, best election we've had in our history. He literally said that. And that's why Trump fired him yesterday. How did this guy ever get in that position? The director of cybersecurity. And also he was on another part of another group that was overseeing the elections. How this guy could make a statement like that is just beyond me. So yeah, obviously Trump fired him. Should never have been hired. Looking back on Trump's term as president, his biggest fail was trusting in people who he thought had the interest of the country ahead of their own political interest. And I realize that a lot of these positions, you have to get them confirmed in the Senate, which makes it hard to get anyone but a deep stater in there. But I think whoever was telling him that certain individuals would have been a good pick for his administration, whether it was Mattis or any of these other characters, they did not serve him well on purpose. It was no accident that all these deep staters were put around Trump. They were put around him to subvert him and to stab him in the back and to help destroy him, quite honestly. So you read a lot of things like on Gateway Pundit, or you watch certain, YouTubers, and you read all this stuff, and it all sounds great. Oh, we caught them doing this. We now know we got the guy who wrote the program for the voter election software, the guy who knows all about the voting machines, former military intelligence. We got this, we got that, we got this, we got that, we got statistics, we got mathematicians saying this is impossible. We got sworn affidavits, we've got this, we've got that. Yes, it gives you the appearance that we're winning, is what that does, to make you feel good. It's hopium. It's but what it looks like to me is, yes, we're winning, but we're losing. We're winning, but we're losing, just like in Spygate and everything else. And when I go back over the years to all these types of events, whether it was JFK or 9/11 and Iraq War, WMD, all these things, all this evidence will come out. It'll be right in front of your face. Everyone will see it. And you're going, wow, we got him. Yeah, you got him. But you never really get him. You win, but you lose. It means the game's rigged, is what that means. That's what that means. When you have the best hand and you still lose the hand, probably because someone cheated. Things are rigged. We're winning, but we're losing. So, yesterday we had this ruling at the Pennsylvania Supreme Court where Giuliani's making the argument that poll watchers were blocked from being able to actually look at the ballots, inspect the ballots. And he lost. 5-2 decision. 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans. All 5 Democrat judges on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, no, all the law says is that they only have to be allowed in the building. They only have to be allowed in the building. They don't have to be able to actually be close enough to see the ballots. Well, what's the point of having someone in the building if they can't see the ballot? They might as well be at home. They might as well be in El Paso. They might as well be in, wherever. It could be anywhere. Doesn't matter. If you're more than 10 feet away, you can't see the damn ballot. You might as well be 1,000 miles away. But that's what the ruling was. Another loss. Despite all the evidence. Because as long as we're in these state courts, federal courts, and Supreme Courts, they're loaded up with left-wing judges. And I don't care how much evidence that you give them. They're going to rule against you. It's rigged. Clearly, the only, and I think that Giuliani realizes this, I think just about everyone realizes this, you're not going to win in these state courts, in the states. I guess the game plan is to go through these processes and lose and lose and lose for the most part. They lost 6 cases over the last Thursday, Friday. 3 in Pennsylvania, 3 in Michigan. Lose, 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 no matter how much evidence they produce. They can keep talking about all the evidence that they have, but when they go in front of these left-wing justices in the federal courts and Supreme Courts in these states, they're going to lose. These left-wing federal judges are not going to rule on the facts, on the law. They're anti-Trumpers. They're part of the deep state. Too much pressure on them from their Democrat colleagues and their Democratic universe. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about the evidence. As far as they're concerned, it's Trump. Therefore, everything is justified. Their decisions are all justified. So I think the overall game here, and I think it's correct, is you go ahead and lose in all these state Supreme Courts. Then you appeal to the Supreme Court, where you actually do have 5 conservatives, or what we like to believe are conservatives. We know there's at least 3. Kavanaugh and Gorsuch are, they're originalists, but whether or not they're conservatives, I'm not 100% sure. Gorsuch, I feel okay about. Of course, Roberts is going to vote with the liberals. He despises Trump. So I think we have 5 solid judges, though. And I think that the game plan is to get to the Supreme Court. Got to lose all these other cases, and then you go to the Supreme Court. That is the very best chance we have. And I no longer think that it's about trying to get them to flip votes or whatever that would give Trump the 270 and subtract votes from Biden. I think that vote is pretty much sailing away. I think that the game now is to get the Supreme Court to make some sort of a ruling to say that these ballots that weren't looked at by both parties or someone representing both parties, they took it out of the envelope. The envelope's gone. There's nothing we can do. It's now in the pile. We have no idea if the signatures matched, if the envelope was legit, anything like that. It was such a corrupted process that to get the Supreme Court to say the process is completely corrupted, there's not even any way to go back and correct it. And I guess the idea would be to get the Supreme Court to say that these, in some of these states that are in play, that there's no way that these elections can be certified. For these elections to be certified by the state legislatures, they would have to be able to say we had a free and fair election. If the Supreme Court hands down a ruling that, your election was so screwed up, it's essentially null and void. So I think that a Supreme Court decision that would essentially nullify the electors and electoral votes from 2 or 3 of these states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, possibly Arizona, maybe Georgia, essentially nullify these states or hand down a ruling saying that these problems will not allow us to have short of a revote, short of completely having a complete revote in these states, which the states are not going to do, to try to get to a place where the states could not certify the election because they could not verify that it was a free and fair election. In which case, what might end up happening, this is kind of a long shot, is that neither candidate would then get 270. If neither candidate gets 270, then the election goes back to the Congress, and there every state would cast one vote. And that should, if every state votes, Republicans vote Republican, Democrats vote Democrat, that should give Trump a narrow win in the Congress, if that should happen. And I honestly believe that that is the best case scenario, and I believe it's the best possible way that Trump could end up being reelected. I think the idea that votes are going to be flipped to Trump and he's going to win these states and Biden's going to lose and Trump's going to get 270, I think that ship is sailing again, way out from the harbor. I think those ships have sailed. I think that the thing to key in now on, and where this best case scenario would be, is that neither candidate gets 270 because a couple of these states simply cannot be certified and they can't have a revote, or would not have a revote. They would just say, okay, we're out of it. We're just not in this election cycle. We're pulling all of our electoral votes. We're not sending any electors. We're reporting nothing. We can't certify this thing. It's just a bust, and nothing happens. In which case, nobody gets those electoral votes, not Trump or Biden. In which case, neither guy hits 270. Without Michigan, Pennsylvania, possibly Georgia, maybe Arizona, you take those four states out of the equation, I don't think either of them get to 270. In which case it goes to the Congress. I think that is probably the best case scenario at this point. And I think that's probably Giuliani and Trump's legal team. I think that's probably where their strategy is right now. They're not going to get the state judges in the state federal court, Supreme Court, to throw out a bunch of Biden votes and switch those to Trump votes. It's just not going to happen. I just don't see it happening. Excuse me. Did anybody catch the video clip of Lindsey Graham fist-pumping Kamala Harris? Lindsey Graham fist-pumping Kamala Harris. That tells you everything you need to know. Fox News continues to bleed out. For the first time in 20 years, Fox and Friends lost in the ratings war to the Morning Schmo. The Morning Schmo. And Fox and Friends used to have double, 3 times, 4 times sometimes, the audience of the CNN and MSNBC morning shows. Even ABC. They would compete with ABC and NBC. Now they have completely fallen. So you can see that even though most people would regard the 3 people on Fox and Friends as being fairly pro-Trump, even they're taking a beating. So it is Lou Dobbs, who's extremely hardcore, 100% pro-Trump. His ratings are taking the beating. So it's not just the daytime and the weekend Fox people that's hurting. It's dragging down even some of their most top-rated shows who are pro-Trump. Hannity's numbers are dropping. Ingram's numbers are dropping. Even Tucker Carlson, I mean, he says his numbers are going up. They're not. He lost viewers. But, Tucker Carlson makes a lot of money. If it comes to hardcore. And I never really saw Tucker Carlson as a hardcore Trump supporter. I just always see Tucker Carlson wants to try to position himself as the honest guy that's just going to tell you the truth. And he's not going to be pro-Trump or anti-Trump. I mean, he really is kind of what you'd expect, a middle-of-the-road sort of call him as you see him sort of guy. He's not going to be your total pro-Trump guy or anti-Trump. He just kind of call him as you see him. I mean, he would actually make a very good anchor, a news anchor, just delivering the news. I think he would be very good at that. But he's also very good in opinion and things like that. And I still think Tucker Carlson's good. But ultimately, the man's going to go where his interests lie and where his fortune lies. So, yeah, the bleeding continues for Fox News, and I hope that network collapses. Right along with MSNBC. And you got to remember, if it turns out that Trump loses the election, CNN and MSNBC, the ratings are going to tank. Because most of their ratings have come attacking Trump. Once there's no more Trump to attack, why would you watch? So I think Trump may be destroyed in all of this, or at least he's knocked out of the presidency for re-election because of fraud. But he's taking a lot of people down with him. Yes, he is. He's taking a lot of people down with him. Well, yesterday we do have some Spygate news. Yesterday, the FBI released a 26-page interview with Christopher Steele. The interview was conducted in 2017. Of the 26-page interview, the entire thing was completely redacted with the exception of the first paragraph on page 1. You get one paragraph on page 1 and then 25 3/4 pages of redaction. Even though Trump's already said he wanted everything released unredacted. That's your FBI right there. And that came as a result of a FOIA request done by the Federalist. But we have learned a couple of things. We learned that Akhmechan, remember Akhmechan, who was one of the translators in the Trump Tower meeting? We now learn, and of course we figured this a long time ago, that Akhmechan was a huge fan of the Right Reverend Clinton and did have contacts with people in the Right Reverend Clinton's inner circle before the Trump Tower meeting. And we also learned that Maria Vetselnitskaya was a huge Hillary Clinton fan. Yeah, maybe that explains why she contacted the Don Jr. so that she could go to Trump Tower and give him dirt on Hillary. Because she's a huge Hillary Clinton fan. You'll never see any of this reported in the news. Never. Not even on Fox, probably. We had Zuckerberg and Dorsey in for hearings. It was a hell of a show. Maybe some of you saw some clips. I did. Hell of a show. I think Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee did pretty well. Hell of a show. But nothing will happen. In fact, it's going to get worse. Nothing will happen. You drag them in front of their computers for a little Q&A. They don't really answer any questions. They pretend, they play stupid. And then the Senate can say we had hearings. And then they'll go back to doing what they do. And they'll continue doing what they do. And it won't end. The only solution is the same with Fox News or any of the other media outlets. Don't, cancel your cable package. If it's got Fox or CNN or MSNBC, cancel it. And get off of Facebook. Get off of Twitter. Get off of them sites. I've never had a Twitter account. I do have a Facebook account. Well, I've had for many years. But it's a Facebook account I have just to keep up with friends and family, mostly friends that I went to high school with, and it's just, convenient place for us to, stay in contact. Not a lot of political stuff goes on that site, on our Facebook group or anything like that. It's just, we're all, friends, went to high school with, people I went to, I've known over the years. Good way to stay in contact. But, obviously, I honestly haven't even been on my Facebook in probably 6 months. So when I do get back to Facebook, it will be probably to cancel my Facebook account and find out where all my friends are going now. Hopefully Parler or something like that. But yes, we just have to cancel Facebook, Twitter, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, cable packages, whatever you got. It's the only tool we have left. It really is. It's the only tool we have left. Now, some of you, I know from the comment section, don't like it when I appear depressed. I'm not depressed. I'm a realist. I'm not happy. I am not happy. I think the election was stolen, and I think that they're going to get away with it. That's the truth. And I'm not happy. But if you're looking for some positives, there are some positives. And the positives are that we've already picked up 12 of the 18 seats that we need to win back the Congress. And those weren't neocons. Those were Trump people. 12 Trump-supporting new seats in Congress, in the House. And there are still, I think, 24 elections that are still within, less than 1%. They could still flip. We could pick up more seats. Whether or not there's 6 more there or not, I don't know. But it's not totally out of the question that we could not take back the Congress or the House. There's enough races that are close enough that that pulling out another 6 is possible. It is possible. So we'll keep watching that. But that is certainly a positive development. I think we will hold on to the 2 Georgia Senate seats only because both of the Democrat candidates are so far left. Now, the downside to that is that the Democrats already admit that they've already signed up 600,000 people for mail-in ballots. They're already signed up. They've already been sent their ballots, and they're ready to come in, and probably just like what we saw in the presidential election. If the Republicans in Georgia do not do something between now and January 5th when they hold that election to make absolutely sure that no votes coming in after election night count, they'll probably lose those 2 seats too. And that would be very bad. But the good news is that they're seeing what is happening. They see how corrupt things are there in Georgia. Stacey Abrams has come out and made a public statement saying, oh yeah, we've already got 600,000 people signed up for mail-in ballots. And by the time January 5th comes around, we expect to have over 1 million. That's in the Senate race. There's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars spent. But I think that the 2 candidates on the Democrat side are so far to the left that I think that they will lose. And I think that a lot of Georgia Republicans, or even people, maybe not even Republicans, maybe independents, people like that, even libertarians, have just been spooked so bad by seeing Georgia fall, most likely fall to the Democrats, that will be a hell of a wake-up call. I think you will see a record turnout, but it's imperative that the Republicans in Georgia, the state legislature there, must immediately rectify the issues with what votes are counted, how the votes are counted, and I would like to be more confident, but from what we're hearing coming out of Georgia right now is, it's still a sham. The recount's a sham. They're not checking signatures, comparing signatures. It's still 9 Democrats and 1 Republican. They still can't get close enough to see what's going on. I mean, it's a sham recount. So I don't know if those people are going to wake up down in Georgia, Republicans, and get their head out of their ass. The governor there is a wuss. The secretary there is a wuss. So we've just got some very weak Republicans in Georgia. But the Republican candidates are reasonably strong. The Democrat candidates are very, very weak. And another positive sign, something if you're looking to take away a positive, is that Trump is not going away. Even if they're successful at stealing the election from him, he's not going to disappear into the ether. He's going to be still the biggest, baddest troll on the web. He's going to be sitting down there in Florida critiquing the Biden administration every single day, pointing out every bad policy they try to put in place, what the consequences are going to be, and then when he's proven right, he'll make sure they know it. And he'll do this. I think they'll pick up, probably win back the House in 2022. I think that they'll expand their Senate seats in 2022 because the Democrats will be defending 2-1, a lot more seats, and it could set the stage for a Trump presidency in 2024. But even if he doesn't run in 2024, it would be he will be the kingmaker. You will not be able to get the nomination without Trump's support. So there is probably some positives for you. We'll keep watching. Thank you. See you. Bye.